Professor Zyx'nax stood before his class of eager alien students, his tentacles quivering with excitement. Today we begin our study of the most fascinating, terrifying, and downright perplexing species in the known galaxy. Humans. A collective gasp rippled through the classroom, followed by nervous chittering and the rustle of appendages. Now settle down, Zyx'nax gurgled, his voice bubbling with amusement. I know you've all heard the stories. Yes, they come from a death world. Yes, they drink poison for fun. And yes, they voluntarily jump out of perfectly good aircraft for recreation. He made air quotes with his tentacles, eliciting a few giggles from the class. But today we're going to focus on something even more baffling: their education system. A brave scorpion in the front row raised a gelatinous pseudopod. Professor, is it true that human children are forced to solve complex mathematical equations while balancing on one leg and reciting their planet's entire history backwards? Zyx'nax let out a booming laugh that sounded like 1,000 balloons being popped underwater. Oh, my dear student, if only it were that simple. No, the reality is far more interesting. With a dramatic flourish of his tentacles, Zyx'nax activated the holographic display. Behold, a typical human homework assignment for what they call middle school, roughly equivalent to our larval stage. The hologram flickered to life, displaying a seemingly innocent worksheet. The alien students leaned forward, their various sensory organs straining to comprehend the bizarre symbols and questions before them. Now Zyx'nax continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You might be thinking, oh, surely this can't be too difficult. After all, it's for adolescent humans. Well, my dear pupils, prepare to have your minds blown, quite literally in some cases. So please make sure your cranial pressure release valves are properly adjusted. The professor cleared his throat, which sounded like a dying bagpipe being strangled by an octopus. Let's start with a simple word problem, shall we? He read aloud, if Sally has 3 apples and Billy has 5 oranges, how many bananas does it take to paint the garage red? The class erupted into chaos. Several students began to spark and smoke as their neural networks attempted to process the illogical query. One poor Zorblaxian in the back row quietly melted into a puddle of confusion. Ha! And that's just the warm-up, Zyx'nax cackled, his tentacles wiggling with glee. Now, let's move on to their history section. Ahem. Explain the socio-economic impact of the Industrial Revolution on modern meme culture, using only interpretive dance and a kazoo. A collective groan echoed through the classroom, punctuated by the sound of several students' brains attempting to escape through their ears. Oh, come now, Zyx'nax chided, barely containing his laughter. Surely the greatest minds of the Galactic Federation can handle a little human middle school homework. Why, I bet if we put our heads together, all 57 of them in this room, we could knock this out in no time. 3 hours later, the classroom was a scene of utter devastation. Scorch marks adorned the walls where students had spontaneously combusted from sheer frustration. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burnt circuits and the unmistakable odor of mental anguish. Zyx'nax stood amidst the chaos, his tentacles drooping with exhaustion. Well, he wheezed, I think we've made progress? Anyone care to share their answers? A trembling gloop blob raised a quivering appendage. Professor, it gurgled. I believe I've solved the riddle of the apples, oranges, and bananas. The entire class held their breath, those who had breath to hold. Anyway, the answer, the gloop blob continued, its voice filled with a mixture of triumph and existential dread, is purple. Because aliens don't wear hats. Zyx'nax blinked all 7 of his eyes in rapid succession. That's brilliant. Of course, it's so obvious now, he scribbled furiously on his datapad, muttering excitedly to himself. From the back of the room, a singed quantumite spoke up, its voice crackling with static. But Professor, what about the history question? I've been attempting to convey the nuances of post-industrial meme evolution through interpretive dance for the past 2 hours, and I think I've pulled every muscle in my probability field. Ah yes, the history question, Zyx'nax mused, stroking his chin tentacles thoughtfully. Well, let's see your dance, shall we? What followed was a spectacle that defied description in any known language, living or dead. The quantumite's dance was a mind-bending display of quantum superposition, with limbs seemingly occupying multiple states of existence simultaneously. The accompanying kazoo solo sounded like a cat being run through a particle accelerator while reciting Shakespearean sonnets. As the performance reached its climax, reality itself seemed to hiccup. For a brief moment, every being in the room experienced what it was like to be a dank meme from 2045. When the cosmic dust settled, Zyx'nax wiped a tear from his central eye. Beautiful, he whispered. Absolutely beautiful. I have no idea what it means, but I'm pretty sure you just rewrote the fundamental laws of the universe. The quantumite took a bow, accidentally phasing through the floor in the process. Well, class, Zyx'nax announced, clapping his tentacles together, I think we've made excellent progress today. We've only gone through 2 questions, caused 17 mental breakdowns, rewritten the fabric of reality twice, and violated the laws of thermodynamics in ways that would make a black hole blush. All in all, a typical day in human middle school. The students groaned in unison, a sound that would haunt the nightmares of lesser beings for eons to come. Now, don't look so glum, Zyx'nax chuckled. Just think, This is only the beginning. Wait until we get to their gym class. I hear they make young humans run from ravenous predators while solving differential equations. A horrified silence fell over the classroom, broken only by the soft plop of another student melting into a puddle of existential dread. But before we move on, Zyx'nax continued, his voice taking on a more serious tone. I think it's important we discuss the true purpose of this exercise. Yes, human education methods seem bizarre, illogical, and downright sadistic to our advanced minds. But consider this, these seemingly nonsensical tasks are preparing young humans for a universe that often makes no sense. He began pacing the room, his tentacles gesticulating wildly. Think about it. In a cosmos full of chaos and uncertainty, where reality can be warped by the mere act of observation, where quantum fluctuations can spawn entire universes, is it really so strange that humans would devise educational systems that embrace absurdity? The students murmured amongst themselves, their various appendages and sensory organs twitching with newfound understanding. Human Zyx'nax continued, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and trepidation. Are creatures born of a death world? Their very existence is a cosmic joke, a species that by all rights shouldn't have survived, let alone thrived. And yet, here they are, spreading across the stars, armed with nothing but their illogical minds and their infuriating ability to make the impossible possible. He paused, letting his words sink in. So my dear students, the next time you find yourself baffled by human behavior or human thinking, remember this day. Remember the moment when the greatest minds of the Galactic Federation were brought to their knees by a middle school homework assignment. A tentative pseudopod raised in the back of the room, but Professor, a timid voice asked, "What does this mean for us, for the future of galactic civilization?" Zyx'nax's expression turned grave, all 7 of his eyes narrowing simultaneously. "It means, my young pupils, that we must adapt. We must learn to think like humans, to embrace chaos and contradiction. For if we cannot comprehend their madness, we may find ourselves left behind in the cosmic dust." He straightened up, his tentacles rippling with determination. "And that, class, is why we will continue to study human education methods. Not because they make sense, but precisely because they don't. In their absurdity lies the key to their success and perhaps the key to the future of the entire galaxy." The classroom fell silent as the weight of this revelation settled over the students. Then, slowly but surely, a wave of excitement began to build. Eyes brightened, tentacles quivered, and gelatinous bodies jiggled with anticipation. "Now then," Zyx'nax said, a mischievous glint in his eyes, "who's ready for the next question? I believe it involves explaining the geopolitical implications of meme warfare using only interpretive yodeling and upperstings." The groan that emanated from the class could be heard 3 star systems away. Meanwhile, on Earth, in a typical middle school classroom. "All right, class," Mrs. Johnson announced, her voice carrying the weary enthusiasm of a teacher who's explained the same concept 17 different ways and is now considering a career in professional yakrian. "Let's go over last night's homework." A chorus of groans filled the room, punctuated by the thud of several foreheads hitting desks in perfect synchronization. "Oh, come on now," Mrs. Johnson chided, her smile a mixture of amusement and despair. "It wasn't that bad, was it?" Who wants to share their answer for question 1? A brave soul in the back row tentatively raised his hand. Mrs. Johnson? I think there might be a mistake in the question. It asks about apples and oranges but then wants to know about painting a garage. Mrs. Johnson's eye twitched ever so slightly. "Ah, yes. Well, you see, Tommy, that's what we call a critical thinking exercise. The point isn't to find a direct answer, but to consider how seemingly unrelated concepts might be connected." "So there isn't a right answer," another student piped up, hope gleaming in her eyes. "Oh no, there's definitely a right answer," Mrs. Johnson replied, her grin taking on a slightly maniacal edge. "You just have to think outside the box. Way, way outside the box. Like in another box entirely, possibly in another dimension." The class collectively sighed, accepting their fate with the resignation of those who have stared into the abyss of illogic and found it staring back, probably while wearing a funny hat and juggling flaming chainsaws. Now Mrs. Johnson continued, clapping her hands together with forced enthusiasm, "who wants to present their interpretive dance on the socioeconomic impact of the Industrial Revolution on modern meme culture." A single, brave student stood up, kazoo in hand, ready to rewrite the very fabric of reality through the power of dance and questionable musical talent. As the performance began, none of the humans in the room realized that, light years away, an entire class of alien students was experiencing a simultaneous existential crisis. Nor did they know that their seemingly nonsensical homework was, at that very moment, being studied as the key to humanity's improbable cosmic success. And so the dance continued, the kazoo wailed, and somewhere in the vast expanse of the universe, the concept of education shuddered and wondered what it had ever done to deserve this. Back in the alien classroom, Professor Zyx'nax was in the midst of explaining the finer points of human jimjinshas when a priority communication interrupted the lesson. The holographic display flickered, replacing the image of sweating human adolescents with the stern visage of Grand Arbiter Klax Nor, Supreme Leader of the Galactic Federation. Professor Zyx'nax, the Grand Arbiter's voice boomed, causing several students to instinctively retract into their exoskeletons. We have a situation of utmost urgency. The fate of the entire galaxy may hang in the balance. Zyx'nax straightened his tentacles, trying to look as dignified as possible while still wearing the kiss the cook apron he'd donned for the home economics portion of the lesson. Grand Arbiter, what seems to be the problem? The Grand Arbiter's expression grew even more grave. If such a thing were possible, we've intercepted a transmission from Earth. It appears to be some sort of challenge. Our top cryptographers have been working around the clock to decipher its meaning, but we're at a loss. We need your expertise in human behavior to unravel this mystery before it's too late. With a dramatic flourish of his tentacles, Clay Axnor activated a secondary hologram. Floating in the air before the stunned class was a simple image, a crudely drawn stick figure with a dialogue bubble containing the words "You mad, bro." The classroom erupted into chaos. Students began babbling in tongues. Some tried to divide by zero, and one particularly distraught Zorgon attempted to eat its own brain in a desperate bid for sweet oblivion. Zyx'nax, however, remained calm. He stroked his chin tentacles thoughtfully, eyes narrowing as he studied the image. "Fascinating," he murmured. "Simply fascinating." "Well," the Grand Arbiter demanded, his patience clearly wearing thin. "What does it mean? Is it a declaration of war, a peace offering? Some sort of fiendish human puzzle designed to drive us all mad?" "It's worse than that, I'm afraid," Zyx'nax replied, his voice grave. "This, esteemed colleagues, is what humans call a meme. More specifically, it's a trolling meme designed to provoke an emotional response and, in layman's terms, get a rise out of the viewer." The Grand Arbiter's eyes widened in horror. "By the 7 moons of Sargon, you mean to tell me that this primitive scribble is a form of psychological warfare?" Zyx'nax nodded solemnly. "Indeed, the humans have weaponized absurdity itself. They've taken the very concept of communication and turned it into a tool for chaos and confusion. It's beautiful, in a terrifying sort of way. But what does it mean?" a student in the front row blurted out, unable to contain their curiosity any longer. "What are we supposed to do with this information?" Zyx'nax turned to face the class, his expression a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "That, my dear students, is the true genius of human meme warfare. The correct response is that there is no correct response. To engage is to lose. To ignore is to lose. The only winning move is not to play, and yet by recognizing that, you've already played and therefore lost." The Grand Arbiter's hologram flickered as he slumped in his chair, defeat written across his alien features. "Then, all is lost. Has humanity outmaneuvered us with their mastery of illogic and dank memes?" "Not necessarily," Zyx'nax replied, a sly grin spreading across his face. "You see, there's one aspect of human culture we haven't yet explored, one that might just save us all." He turned back to the class, his tentacles quivering with excitement. "Students, today's lesson is canceled. Instead, we're going to embark on a daring mission to save the galaxy. Our weapon? The most powerful force in the human arsenal? Dad jokes." The classroom fell silent, a mixture of confusion and existential dread hanging in the air like a particularly pungent fog. "Professor," one brave soul ventured, "what exactly is a dad joke?" Zyx'nax's grin widened, taking on an almost manic quality. "Oh, my dear pupils, prepare yourselves for the ultimate test of your sanity. For you see, a dad joke is..." What followed was a barrage of puns so groan-worthy, so mind-bendingly terrible, that several students spontaneously evolved additional pain receptors just to fully appreciate the awfulness. "Why don't scientists trust atoms?" Zyx'nax asked, his voice trembling with barely contained glee. "Because they make up everything." The class groaned in unison, a sound that could curdle milk in 17 different star systems. "What do you call a fake noodle?" he continued, undeterred. "An impasta." "An impasta." A Florbidian in the back row began to emit a high-pitched keening noise, its sensory tendrils writhing in agony. "Why don't skeletons fight each other?" Zyx'nax pressed on, his eyes gleaming with a manic light. "They don't have the guts." The Grand Arbiter's hologram flickered as he clutched his head with all 4 hands. "Professor, please. Surely there must be another way." But Zyx'nax was unstoppable now, a force of nature fueled by the awesome power of terrible wordplay. Why did the Scarecrow win an award? He was outstanding in his field. As the puns continued to flow, a strange thing began to happen. The initial groans of pain and despair slowly transformed into something else. Snorts of reluctant amusement, giggles of disbelief, and finally full-blown laughter. "Don't you see?" Zyx'nax exclaimed, gesturing wildly with his tentacles. "This is the true power of the dad joke. It's so bad, it's good. It breaks through all defenses, shattering preconceptions and leaving only the raw, primal response of laughter in its wake." The Grand Arbiter blinked in astonishment. "By the cosmic egg, you're right. But how does this help us counter the human meme offensive?" Zyx'nax's expression turned serious. "Simple, Your Excellency. We fight fire with fire. Or in this case, absurdity with absurdity. We'll respond to their meme with the greatest dad joke the galaxy has ever known. The next few hours were a blur of brainstorming, wordplay, and enough puns to make a dictionary weep. Finally, after much deliberation and several minor mental breakdowns, they had their weapon. With trembling appendages, Zyx'nax transmitted their response to Earth, a holographic image of an alien dad figure complete with stereotypical Hawaiian shirt and socks with sandals saying, "Why did the human cross the galaxy? To get to the other tide." The classroom held its breath, those who had breath to hold. Anyway, as they waited for a response, seconds stretched into minutes, minutes into hours, and then, just as hope began to fade, a transmission arrived from Earth. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a single human. For a moment, the alien observers thought the transmission had frozen, as the human remained perfectly still. But then, ever so slowly, the corner of the human's mouth began to twitch. The twitch became a smirk, the smirk a grin, and finally the human burst into uncontrollable laughter. Cheers erupted throughout the classroom. Tentacles waved triumphantly, pseudopods high-fived with reckless abandon, and even the Grand Arbiter allowed himself a small smile which, given his species' physiology, looked more like a grimace of pain. But the sentiment was there. "We did it," Zyx'nax exclaimed, his voice hoarse from the emotional roller coaster of the past few hours. "We've successfully communicated with the humans on their own terms. This could be the beginning of a new era of interstellar understanding." As the celebration continued, a small notification appeared on Zyx'nax's datapad. It was a message from Earth, a response to their dad joke. With trembling tentacles, he opened it. The message contained a single image, a human giving a thumbs up, with the caption, "Nice one, alien dad. But I've got an asteroid belt that would go great with that Hawaiian shirt." Zyx'nax felt a strange warmth spreading through his chromatophores. Was this pride? Kinship? The beginnings of an interstellar dad joke competition that would span millennia and redefine the very nature of diplomatic relations? Whatever it was, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same. As the classroom settled down, Zyx'nax cleared his throat, all 7 of them. "Well, students, I think we've all learned a valuable lesson today. Human education, with all its seeming illogic and chaos, has prepared them for a universe that often makes no sense. Their ability to find humor in the absurd, to create connection through shared confusion, is perhaps their greatest strength." He paused, looking out at the sea of alien faces before him. Some were still giggling, others looked shell-shocked, and a few appeared to be questioning every life decision that had led them to this moment. And so Zyx'nax continued, "As we continue our study of human culture, let us remember this day. Let us approach their strange ways not with fear or disdain, but with open minds and a willingness to embrace the absurd. For in doing so, we may just find that we have more in common with these Deathworlders than we ever imagined." A tentative pseudopod raised in the back of the room. "Professor," a timid voice asked, "does this mean our final exam will be in memes and dad jokes?" Zyx'nax's eyes twinkled with mischief. "Oh, my dear student, it will be so much worse than that. Prepare yourselves for interpretive dance TikTok challenges." The groan that emanated from the class was so profound that it caused a minor temporal distortion, briefly sending the room 5 minutes into the past, where they had to endure the announcement all over again. As the students filed out of the classroom, still chuckling and shaking their heads in disbelief, Zyx'nax couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement for the future. The galaxy was a strange and often terrifying place, but with a good dad joke and a willingness to embrace the absurd, anything was possible. And somewhere out there, on a little blue planet circling an unremarkable yellow star, a human middle school student was staring at their homework assignment, blissfully unaware that their struggle to explain the socioeconomic impact of the Industrial Revolution on modern meme culture had just averted an interstellar incident and paved the way for a new age of cosmic understanding. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all, and it was terrible. Epilogue. Years later, as the first official human delegation arrived at the Galactic Federation headquarters, tensions were high. Centuries of misunderstanding and fear had led to this moment. The fate of interstellar relations hung in the balance. As the airlock hissed open, revealing the human ambassadors, a hush fell over the assembled alien dignitaries. The lead human stepped forward, clearing their throat. Every being in the room leaned in, straining to hear these historic first words. The human grinned and said, "Hey, aliens, why don't you trust atoms? They make up everything." There was a moment of stunned silence. Then, from somewhere in the back of the room, came a single snort of laughter. It was Professor Zyx'nax. That snort broke the dam. Soon the entire chamber was filled with the sounds of laughter, groans, and the unmistakable slap of alien appendages against foreheads. And just like that, with a single terrible dad joke, centuries of tension melted away. It wasn't diplomacy as anyone had expected it, but it worked. Because sometimes in a universe full of chaos and wonder, the most powerful force isn't logic or reason or even advanced technology. Sometimes it's the ability to laugh together at a really, really bad pun. As for the students in Zyx'nax's class, they went on to become the galaxy's foremost experts in human culture, leading the way in interstellar meme exchange programs and hosting the first intergalactic dad joke competition, which incidentally caused a minor rift in the space-time continuum. But that's a story for another day. And so, the Great Human Alien Dad Joke Alliance was born, ushering in an era of peace, prosperity, and really terrible wordplay. The universe would never be the same, but then again, where's the fun in staying the same? After all, as a wise human once said, the only constant is change, to which an alien replied, no, the only constant is the speed of light. Change is a variable, and thus began the great physics pun war of 2785. But that's another story entirely. The end, or is it just the setup for an even bigger cosmic joke? Only time and possibly a few more terrible puns will tell.